Yeah, I grew up in Illinois and started stand-up there, and then lived in Chicago for a little bit, and then I've lived in St. Louis for the last 4 years.
Okay. Was there a reason you were in St. Louis?
I was doing a lot of touring, and that's in the middle of the country, and it was still close to where I grew up in Illinois. I dropped out probably when I was 20. I started stand when I was 18, and then I dropped out of school when I was 20 to
Mm-hmm.
go full-time touring comedian. Yeah, when I dropped out, I wasn't. It wasn't because everybody said you're great. It was because I knew that I wanted to do stand-up, and college was in the way.
Mm-hmm.
So I just quit and then moved to Chicago and kind of wrote, uh, with getting on the road in mind. So it took like 9 months to get a full-time schedule, and then I just haven't stopped since then.
So you seem a little bit more goal oriented than somebody who's just doing stand up and hopefully it works out for them.
Oh, no, no, yeah, definitely. I had goals. I've always had goals. I knew kind of what I was wanting to do and where I was wanting to go, and so I always like to have goals to work towards. Whether like I like to have some short term and then some long term things.
Mm-hmm.
So at the time when I quit school, it was the short term goal was just to be a comedian, and no other job or no school.
What school did you drop out of to pursue comedy?
Southern Illinois University at Edwardsville. It's
Oh,
outside of St. Louis.
all right. Have they been tracking you?
Actually, they have. I get emails from people. They gave me a thing. I did an interview. I made it into this like alumni book or something, and then then I made it into like the top 30 under 30 alumni. And this girl was interviewing me, and she was like, you're the only person in here that didn't actually graduate, right?" So I was like, "Oh, that seems perfect for me." It's good. It's just in the Midwest. It was not easy, but I probably lived within driving distance of 25 comedy clubs. So
Mm-hmm.
even though it was hard and it took a lot of work, it was one of those things of I knew that I could, if I could afford to tank of gas, I could get to a comedy club. When I was in Chicago, I would just go every night, and then some nights twice a night. I never really did a lot of I couldn't find 3 and 4 sets a night up there.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe some people could. But then when I went on the road, I would just go, doing comedy clubs about 48 to 50 weeks a year for the first few years. Yeah, that's kind of, I guess that's just what my style of stuff has evolved into.
Mm-hmm.
When I first started out, I feel like it was jokes, but like kind of jokes that really happened. Just I guess I wasn't good enough to make them into a full story. It was more just like a couple punchlines, but
Mm-hmm.
I like telling a story a lot more now. I got into it because of David Letterman was basically the only one. I didn't even know
Mm-hmm.
stand-up comedy when I was coming up.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have cable until I was 16, and I just didn't watch a lot of stand-up. I just watched a lot of Letterman,
Right.
and then my stepdad told me that Letterman started out as a stand-up comedian. So just as like an 8-year-old kid, I just go, "Oh, I'm going to be a stand-up comedian,"
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't even know really what it meant.
Yeah.
And then I started it at 18, and then still, when I started at 18, I probably had seen, well, I had never seen a live show, and then on TV maybe 10 comedians. It's kind of like, the way David Letterman made people laugh, and the
Mm-hmm.
way he is as a comedian or host,
Right.
it's something where I really related to as a kid, even though I probably didn't get most of the jokes. I just enjoyed the way that he made people laugh without kind of being goofy or with just that very dry sense of humor. And Louis is great too, but he was in the writers world for a while, so it wasn't until like his specials started coming out, what was it, like 6 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
that I guess it seemed like people didn't really realize how great he was until then, just because there just wasn't that much content out there. It was fun. I think it was all positive, except for the losing part. I'm a very sore loser. Except for the losing part, I think it was a good time. Everybody likes to talk about it's not fair. It really isn't fair. And I did the semifinals in '07 and then got booted. And you have to, I just completely understand that when they're doing the show, when they get down to the final 10, like it is casting to an extent because they can't just put 10 people that they like. They have to get 10 people that they think an audience will tune into every week and watch because they're spending a lot of money on it. So I honestly think that they're trying to be fair, or at least this year they were. In other years, people have said differently, but this year, the semifinals was a lot of great comedians, and I feel like, myself excluded, so I'm not talking about myself, but if you had taken any group of 10 out of that semifinals round, you could have had a good show. So I think that was their job, is just to get 40 really good comedians and then pick 10 of them. This year was different because they did make it where, and it was very subtle, but Greg Giraldo would mention, "Oh, I know you, I've worked with you on the road," or "Hey, I love your stuff." And so they did kind of make it seem less like this is American Idol, where these people who came out of, Home Depot and walked up to the stage,
Yeah.
It is a little deceptive, and it is for me. I've been doing stand-up almost 10 years, and I was making a living. I've been making a living at it for the last 7, and I've had good things happen as far as TV or just like the touring work. But after the show, I'll get people that'll come up, and they're like, "Oh, what were you doing before last comic?" Yeah, I don't curse in my set. I don't curse at all.
That's like you and Bill Cosby almost, are the people who don't do that.
That came from when I started stand-up. I seriously just didn't curse in my real life. So, and not that I picked it up, but now I do a little bit just in conversation.
Yeah.
But to me, I probably did stand-up for 7 years, and didn't even curse in real life. And then when I started like kind of dropping a few here and there, I just thought, why would I add curse words to an act that why would I add them?